All right, guys, good afternoon, DogNation.com. I'm Jeff Sintel, and as I just tweeted out a few minutes ago, I am flying solo today on Before the Hedges. Why? Well, that's because my man, Brandon Adams, is walking the hallowed grounds of Augusta National Golf Club. The avid par 3 golfer himself is probably taking in a pimento cheese and also a par 3 contest. So everybody wish Brandon well and ask him about Augusta National on the show tomorrow. But for right now, the show, it must go on. I'm Jeff Sintel. I'll be your dutiful host here for, I don't know, maybe about an hour of all things Dog Nation. Got a show today, got a busy show today. We're going to focus on a few things. Number one, as you saw as the header of the show, it was something maybe that Brandon and I were talking about earlier this week when he was kind of lamenting about certain parts of the team and where the help was on the way. And I kind of reminded him not to forget there's still 12 members of that 2019 signing class, the one that rated number 2 overall in the country, that are still on their way to Athens. Those boys are going to be there in mid-May, late May, and they should mostly all be there by June. So that's 12 members of the team that's going to add some oomph to certain positions on the team. But that's going to come in a little bit later. The rest of the show we got today is we're going to have a little bit of fun with the name game recently. I don't know if you guys saw the recent story on DogNation.com with Eric Gilbert and his mother Akiba Gilbert about how that name game got a little funny. We'll share what I felt to be some hilarious audio with that. And also we've got some film study. We're going to look a little bit at 3 names in the 2020 recruiting class that I don't think folks have maybe gotten a full digest of everything that's going on there with the 2020 class. We're going to look a little bit at Justin Flo, a little bit at Keely Ringo. Also going to take a good look at Laneith Whitehead as well in the 2020 class. We're going to get to all that. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about G-Day. Don't forget, we also have the famed Before the Hedges Dog Nation 6-pack, except this time I'm going to be playing with all you good people and not just Brandon Adams. So let's all just quickly imagine a Brandon Adams hologram over here, maybe every 2 minutes talking about 5 stars, 5 stars. Jeff, give me the 5 stars. I want to know about those 5 stars. And it will be just like normal. And also we'll close the show with an extended hurry-up segment. And that's that Kroger $50 gift card, that How About Them Groceries gift card that everybody else will get. We'll pick a winner from all the great questions at the end of the show. So with that, let's get started. First of all, I want everybody to get a look at, we've kind of found a bunch of names in the 2019 class they're still on their way to Athens. Those guys will make an impact and a dent on the roster. In fall practice, you'll start hearing a lot about them in summer workouts and also in August when fall drills start up. First and foremost, let's start with number 5 on the list. We're going to walk our way down that list a little bit. And the 5th topic we're going to talk about, we're going to lump these 2 guys together. That's Eli Wolf and Lawrence Cager. Those are grad transfers. Those guys are big boys, all well over 20, 21 years of age. They were recruits way a long time ago, back when Mark Richt, I believe, was still recruiting for Georgia. That's how long ago their senior seasons of high school were. So interesting there, you've got Eli Wolf there. Obviously, Georgia needs that tight end depth. They need to figure out a way to do something on that side of the ball. They've obviously got Rylan Godey, who's recovering from a knee injury. Really is going to be Charlie Warner's year for all that. And they've also got the up-and-coming John Fitzpatrick. But Eli Wolf, a guy that Mike Griffith writes about a lot. He writes about, when we're talking about the 2019 signees that'll help away, Eli Wolf is a mature guy. He's been a team captain for the Tennessee Vols. He was taken to SEC Media Days last year by Jeremy Pruitt. Going to add a lot of size and physicality. Georgia likes to still run some of those ace sets and those jumbo sets with 2 tights, and you should expect Eli Wolf to get in there a lot, especially in goal line situations. Then the second name is Lawrence Cager out of Miami. A lot of folks you talk to about Miami say he's one of those hot and cold recruits. Going to make a lot of brilliant catches, those kind of high wire catches that are going to grab some highlights, but also had some issues at Miami with some drops. But he's a big target. He's originally out of Maryland. He's made some plays in the ACC for the Hurricanes. Cagers is a guy that's going to add to that 6'4", 6'5" club for Jake Fromm in the receiving corps at Georgia. You look at it, there's guys like Tommy Bush, there's guys like Matt Landers. Now you've got Lawrence Cager. You've got George Pickens coming in as well. A lot more big body targets for Georgia. Those are two names, those grad transfers. Folks, they're coming in to play right away, so you know those guys are going to have to make an impact. Moving on to number 4 on the slide. Now, I'm just going to call these guys, the Tennessee 3 or the Tennessee 3s for a lot of reasons. One is they're 3 guys that Georgia signed out of the state of Tennessee. They're also 3 guys that can also help on the D-line who can play some 3 technique. First of all, let's kind of look at 2 guys that I feel can do either or. They can play out the edge as a defensive end. That's Zion Logue or Bill Norton. Both those guys are about 6'5", about 285, 290, 6'6", 290. In the case of Zion Logue, great story here. He was a kid that was maybe this time last year still about 6'5" and about 245 pounds. Folks were wondering, is he a linebacker? Is he a tight end? Well, Zion put on about 45 pounds of weight, didn't lose any of his explosiveness and speed, and now he's a guy that I can see adding some potentially Jordan Davis type depth to the interior of the Georgia defensive line. Big body, big athlete in the 2019 class. Other guy there is Bill Norton. He's also out of Tennessee, out of Memphis, out of Christian Brothers. He actually committed to Georgia probably about 13 months ago. It was this time, maybe March, when he committed to Georgia. He was basically in love with Georgia from his first camp visit. Georgia made him a priority. That was a big early win for Trey Scott. 6'6", 285, guy that can play defensive end, really nasty temperament. Folks want to sit there and look at him maybe as a Bill Goldberg type, maybe the 2019 model Bill Goldberg. The young man does dream about making suplexes with his tackles, and he's actually done so in his highlight film. The third guy there is Tamon Mitchell. Now, Tamon Mitchell is a guy, you look at him and you wonder, what is he going to be? He's about 6'3", he's about 305, can play the 3, and that's why I kind of gave him a label as part of the Tennessee 3, but he's actually a true nose guard. Kirby Smart was infatuated with him during his recruitment because he was coming out of a very nice private school in Nashville, but it was also a school that really educated the young man. Very rare to find a defensive tackle or a defensive line target that can basically put up 25 on the ACT. He played both ways in high school. Will be very interesting to see what he can be when he gets in Sinclair's strength and conditioning program and also just works on one side of the ball. 3 guys there. When you hear Kirby Smart talk about, what's going on, wishes he had more depth on the defensive line, I think those 3 guys, plus another name we'll call later, can add a lot of depth to that defensive line rotation for Trey Scott's room. Number 3 on the list, and of course Jeff is going there. He's going there with George Pickens. That's the 5-star wide receiver, actually out of Hoover, Alabama. Nation's number 4 receiver for the 2019 class. Was a long time to commitment to Auburn. Eventually flipped to Georgia on signing day, and there was some wavering to go there with his decision. Was it going to be Auburn? Was it going to be Tennessee? He finally made up his mind on, I guess, the first day of early signing day. He had an announcement at one of the Hoover Rec Centers where he chose Georgia. He put on the Georgia cap. Some family members told me that day that they didn't find out what his choice was going to be until maybe moments before he made that decision. So George Pickens, you want to talk about an alpha receiver, a guy that can go up and get it. Pickens had 15-plus touchdowns during his senior year playing for Hoover High, and Hoover, folks, is just simply one of the best and most powerful, most prestigious high school football programs in the nation, to say the least. And everybody went into games facing and game planning against George Pickens, wondering, got to stop this kid. How do we stop this kid? Most never did. And George Pickens, according to my information, according to all accounts, looking pretty good for qualification there as well to join the Georgia Bulldogs. And you hear Kirby Smart mention about the wide receiver spot a lot during his press briefings. He talks about that position. He mentions Micaiah Tongue, another guy out of Louisiana that will play the wide receiver spot. He mentions the name George Pickens. And he also mentions number 2 on our list right here. He mentions Dominic Blaylock out of Walton High School. Was a 5-star for the longest time in the class of 2019. Just lost that 5th star late in his evaluation period. And Blaylock, according to those that are close to that situation, have told me that he's getting a lot of daily, weekly text messages from Kirby Smart and the staff telling him to be ready to play. You guys heard those comments on Dog Nation Daily regarding Dominic Blaylock about how they wanted him to maybe be ready to come in and play early, and how Kirby Smart didn't hesitate and will not hesitate to play a freshman in terms of the punt returner role. And you look at that slot receiver position, Georgia sees him can kind of play all over, but that slot definitely with just Kearis Jackson working prominently right there in spring drills, that's a place for Dominic Blaylock to come in and play right away. And folks, this guy has been Georgia pretty much all the way. Didn't take any other visits. Once he made his decision to go to Georgia, never wavered. He's a guy that's getting ready to also come in and compete every day. I'm told that Dominic Blaylock spends mornings working on speed training, evenings working on weight training, and vice versa. He's well over 200 pounds right now, just wanting to put himself in a position with the playbook to get ready to play right away. And I think you're going to see Dominic Blaylock spending a lot of meeting time in Athens whenever it's possible for him to come up and sit in on those meetings to try and get up to speed with the new installs and the new terminology. Dominic Blaylock is in a nutshell there. Very important potential impact player coming into the 2019 class. And guys, we're talking about there guys that aren't in spring practice but are still part of that nation's number 2 recruiting class that are on their way to Georgia. And with that, the number 1 guy Dog Nation and Before the Hedges looks at as a guy who could come in and make an impact early, that would be Trayvon Walker out of Thomaston, Georgia. The Upson Lee 3-sport athlete. He's done it in the shot put at state meet. He's done it on the basketball court, a winner of 2 state championships there for the Knights. And obviously, he's the first 5-star defensive tackle recruit of the Kirby Smart era there at Georgia. Nation's number 2 class. You can look at him very easily and think about that guy having a clear path to playing right away. When you hear Kirby Smart mention twitchy 3 techniques and guys that can make a play, can beat a block, and get in the backfield, I think he's talking about Trayvon Walker there a lot. And he's a guy who's going to room eventually when he gets to Athens in May. He's going to room with a Nolan Smith. He's going to room with Nakobe Dean. He's going to room with Tresman Marshall. And that's going to be a pretty good pack of guys that should play right away and should play well for the Georgia Bulldogs. There you go. There's 5 parts of the 2019 class that I guess we could say cavalry's still coming, that those guys are still on the way for 2019. Folks, you've joined us for another edition of Before the Hedges here on Dog Nation. Brandon Adams is mysteriously invisible right here over my shoulder. He has made a pledge not to reappear until Georgia gets a 5-star commitment. Of course, I jest there. Brandon is actually at the Masters today enjoying the par 3 contest. Nonetheless, the show must go on, and we're sponsored today and every day by Kroger. And with Kroger right now, you've got Easter coming up, and your local Kroger has hopping deals for Easter. Save 20% off all your Easter needs, from plastic eggs to basket grass to those PAS Easter egg dyes, those dyeing kits, and so much more. Who doesn't get down with the Peeps? Who doesn't get down with those, I guess they're Reese's Pieces carrots that are kind of put together to look like a carrot? I know my family really likes those a lot. So for all your shopping needs, check out Kroger. Our next segment on terms of needs, we're going to take a look at a young man who I feel, funny little segment here, who I feel is kind of one of the most prioritized, most needed, and most recruited guys for Georgia in the 2020 class. That's 5-star tight end Eric Gilbert. And you got to make sure you get that name game right and don't trip up there. Not Eric Gilbert, but actually Eric Gilbert. And we spoke about that. We wrote about that this week on DogNation.com. I want to show you some video here of when Dog Nation spoke to Mr. Gilbert about his name, the correct way to pronounce his name, and maybe we've got a family member throwing a flag right there because even Eric jumped a little off sides with his name right here. Let's take a look at that right now.
Hey, my name is Eric Gilbert. I don't be saying it like that usually though.
How is it pronounced?
It's pronounced Eric, but I usually say Eric because everybody else says that.
See, man,
Hey, my name's Eric Gilbert, and I go to Marietta High School.
Wait, what are you right now?
Oh, my height is.
All right, guys, and now you see right there, he tried to walk us through the best way to pronounce his name. Well, it was funny, when I spoke to his mother, Akiba Gilbert, at the Atlanta Opening Regional, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about his fashion choices, about way he kind of looked like he was ready to go on a boat and take a nice little sunset cruise at the Atlanta Opening Regional. But she also probably gave us the best intel possible. That's that mom intel on actually the right way to pronounce her son's first name. Give this a look right here.
How do you spell your first name?
Akiba, A-K-I-B-A.
Is it Akiba?
It's Akiba.
Akiba. I got with him. I was like, man, let's say your name right. And he's like, well, everybody calls me Eric. And I was like, but what is it? And I was like, Eric. That's not his name? I got him on camera. He's like,
I know.
You saw it, right? You're like laughing.
Me and his dad saw it. What's that? Who is Eric?
Oh, so if he was a 4-star or 3-star, it would be Eric. But now he's 5-star. It's Eric.
Eric? I have no idea. We were like, who is that? He said, well, I put emphasis on it because if I tell them it's Eric, that's what it's supposed to be. Eric. His dad is Avis. His brother is Avis, so he's Eric. I mean, Eric.
Eric. So it's Eric.
Eric.
Like
right.
A rhymes with brick.
Right. But if I say it's Eric, then they'll hear the difference between Eric and Eric.
So he's just trying to get us down the road.
That's it.
It's like, that's not the right way, but this is in that direction.
Right. So I was like, okay, Eric, go ahead, Eric.
All right, guys, and right there, sometimes this job just gets kind of fun. You sit there and you've got to write about offers and liens and visits and official visits, but when you can kind of catch mom setting the record straight on her child's name, and he's still her child, even though he's about 6'5 and a half, 245 pounds with that 80-inch wingspan. Not funny, but interesting tidbit from the story we wrote this week on Dog Nation is Eric Gilbert made it very clear that he's looking for a very tight end friendly offense. Likes what he's hearing so far from Todd Hartley. Likes how he's hearing that the Georgia tight end position is going to morph and it's going to adapt a little bit under James Coley. He sure would like to make his decision sometime this summer to get that out of the way, but he's not going to rush a bad decision. If he's not sure about what he sees and what he likes with the schools he's targeting, he's just going to slow it down and make his decision mid-season. One particular question I always have for Eric and not Eric Gilbert, I'll try and say that 5 times really fast. But one particular question I thought was very interesting is, I asked him a lot, I said, Eric, how are you going to know that the Georgia offense is now an improved or an augmented tight end friendly offense when you're planning to commit during the summer, hopefully before your senior season, when you haven't really seen the product on the field from Georgia yet? Very interesting question. He hopes to maybe see some of that in practice, see some of that in meeting rooms, see some of that on G-Day, but also if he doesn't know exactly what a clear picture of what the tight end room looks like for Georgia, might wait a couple of weeks into the season to see that on the field and see that ball maybe going into John Fitzpatrick's hands and Eli Wolf's hands and, of course, Charlie Warner's hands during the course of the 2019 campaign. Very interesting right there. Eric Gilbert, definitely a guy to think about in the 2020 class for the longest time. Georgia offered him in middle school when he was on his way to high school. Big-time target. He trains with Terrence Edwards. Already been invited to the opening finals out in Texas. And you think about it, when we pull up our top targets list for the 2020 class, you look at Eric Gilbert, his name has always been in there. I think he's been a mainstay in the 2020 class. And the more you think about it, he's simply a guy Georgia has to win that recruiting battle with schools like Tennessee. He just visited LSU. He just visited Oklahoma. Clemson is also in there. Penn State is also in there. Also checked out Texas A&M over his spring break. And I think this summer is going to be huge for Gilbert, because what he's trying to do right now, especially with that spring break trip, is he wanted to get a sense of what else was out there, because most of his travel so far has been to a lot of southeastern schools. So he wanted to kind of compare what he sees from those schools with what he kind of figures out to be norms with schools like Auburn and Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Clemson. Interesting thing there in that story we wrote this week with Akiba Gilbert's thoughts on her son and his recruitment. Said a lot of very interesting things about the people at the University of Georgia. In her mind, the people, the support staff, the academic counselors, that in her mind is what makes Georgia an outstanding option and an outstanding potential option for her son as well. Gilbert, so we got that name game out of the way. Now seems the proper time to take a look at the top targets for the class of 2020. What we always try to do is we try to fire those up, roll through all those names, and we had a massive reorganization of the 2020 list last week. We dropped Brian Brzee down to number 3, kind of probably where it needs to be right now with all that leaning and entanglement with Clemson. We moved Miles Murphy down to number 10, but it also allowed us the chance to get some other names into the top 10 for Georgia. First of all, Kendall Milton, that's the 5-star running back. Georgia has basically recruited him every day, almost every day, through some sort of social media or text messages going back to last August. Clear priority with how DeAndre Swift is vectoring towards the NFL draft after his junior season. Number 2 on that list is a name people have kind of seen around for a while. We just spoke about it, and that's Eric Gilbert. 6'5.5", 245, 4.83. That was his laser time in the 40. Had a game last season when one of his teammates went down where he caught 15 balls for 200-plus yards. Huge priority for everybody in the 2020 class, especially the Georgia Bulldogs. Our third name is a name that you guys have known for quite some time. Brian Brzee just took his unofficial visit to Clemson. He was there for their spring game. Clemson gathered a lot of momentum out of that spring game, and really Clemson is trending. I think, folks, you just go ahead and get in your mind. We've kind of spoke about this on the Dog Nation forum. Expect the Tigers to end up with 6 or 7 of the nation's top 40 players. Going to be their biggest class ever under Dabo Swinney in terms of the high yield targets, but also the numbers and the rankings and everything like that. I know there's a lot of folks wondering about this Georgia-Clemson recruiting battle. One way to look at it from the Georgia perspective of all this is Clemson is just now starting to recruit the way Georgia has, dating back to its 2018 class. Brian Brzee recently got reclassified to a defensive tackle on the 24/7 Sports Composite. The next name on your list is Mr. Ringo. That's Keely Ringo. Oh, excuse me, we had a Darnell Williams there out of Las Vegas. That's another top target for Georgia out of Nevada. He's been to Georgia already 2 times, had 2 very good visits there. Don't expect to see him at G-Day. He plans to make his next trip to Georgia in June when he makes the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. Georgia is really in a good shot here, in a good spot here to try and add 2 5-star athletes. Eric Gilbert is the nation's number 1 athlete. Darnell Washington is the nation's number 2 athlete. Georgia is going to try to add 2 5-stars to its tight end room. And Gilbert, you look at those highlights, 6'7.5", 250, runs a 4.7. He even punts for his high school team, does a little bit of everything, plays a 3 technique on defense. Georgia really wants to add Darnell Washington, another 5-star, potential 5-star for the class of 2020. Next up on the top targets list, we've got another running back, Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd is out of DeMatha Catholic in Hyattsville, Maryland. Nation's number 5 or 6 running back, I believe. The latest re-rank of the 24/7 Sports Composite was at South Carolina last week for its spring game. Georgia continues to be very much into things for Marshawn Lloyd, what it has in terms of featuring the running back spot, not using up all the carries there and spreading the carries around a talented backfield. to go along with that big offensive line. Marshawn Lloyd's about 5'9.5", about 218, sort of like a DeAndre Swift a little bit, but Marshawn Lloyd is a tremendous athlete in the class of 2020. Definitely one of the top targets for Georgia in the class of 2020. The next guy up is another G-Day visitor. That's Mikael Sherman out of Washington, D.C. It's part of that D.C. DMV fishing hole with a lot of big targets. Mikael's very interesting, 6'3", about 235, can clock a 4.5, a low 4.5 in the 40-yard dash. That was on a laser time last year at the opening. He made it to the opening last year as a junior. He will not camp at the opening, will not go to the opening this year because he's under strict doctor's orders to kind of save the knee and keep his knee rehab on point. He's coming off of a season-ending knee injury that ended his junior year out of St. John's College. Very big target for Georgia in the 2020 class. With what Georgia has stacked up at outside linebacker in recent years, Mr. Sherman might be the only outside linebacker the Bulldogs take in 2020, but he's also another hybrid where he can play inside and outside as well. Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning has done a great job so far recruiting Mr. Sherman. When he took his last visit to Georgia, that was for a birthday weekend back in March. He told me after that visit that Georgia just feels like a special place. Georgia just feels different right now than all the other schools that are recruiting him. Next up on our list, I mentioned him earlier because I think internally I probably have him as one of the top 3, top 4 targets for Georgia for the rest of the way. That's Keely Ringo out of Scottsdale, Arizona. We'll talk about him a little bit later in the show. Nation's number 2 corner. He's about 6'2", he's about 210. Already took a visit with his mother for an unofficial earlier this year. Is coming back to Georgia again for an unofficial for G-Day. That's a lot of trips for a young man from Arizona. And of course, everyone saw that package deal, who with it tweet over the weekend from Keely Ringo as well. Next up on our list of 2020 targets, continuing to kind of breeze through what the 2020 board looks like. You've got Justin Flo out of Upland, California. Justin Flo's actually got a younger brother out of Upland that's also a budding recruit in the 2022 class, I believe. But he's a guy set to announce his top 12 very shortly. I do expect Georgia to be clearly in that top 12. This is an area in California where Georgia can really open up a mine or a pipeline there to find a lot of gold in their hills, so to speak. But with Flo, you've got a very active, a very physical linebacker. Everybody likes this play right here. And first of all, it's a great play. It reminds me of guys like Thomas Davis, Greg Blue, and Trey Blackman from many years ago in LaGrange. But it's a great clip for Justin Flo, but also somebody just whiffed on a block on the interior line, and that's what a 5-star linebacker should do. Justin Flo is the nation's number 1 inside linebacker target for 2020 on the composite, and he's the nation's number 3 overall prospect. Keeping going down that board, Big Tate Ratledge out of Rome. I've been thinking for a while that he's basically down to Georgia and Tennessee. The thing there with Tennessee is his family all grew up Volunteer fans. His father still has the big Power T on his truck. He told his son, though, no worries about that, son. I'm going to be a Tate Ratledge fan in college. And maybe that big T right now stands for his son, Tate. Wherever Tate Ratledge chooses to go, he's going to pull that license plate off and put that school's insignia or logo on that truck, unless he goes to Tennessee as well. Sam Pittman's done a great job recruiting Tate. Big thing for me about Tate is he was dominant at the Atlanta opening. He's also gotten a lot bigger since last season. I think he's grown since spring practice last year. He's grown about 1.5 inches. He's put on about 10 to 15 pounds. Tate Ratledge is a guy that is athletic enough to punt for his high school team, and he's got a net average as a punter of 39 yards per kick. And folks, I'm just waiting for some sort of clip out of Darlington where somebody tries to block one of that young man's boots, because I don't see that happening. Tate Ratledge, nation's number 5 offensive tackle, trending upwards towards that 5-star. He actually also got open at the Atlanta Regional. He'll be out in Texas as well in early July with the best players in the country. Finally, we close out our top targets list with Miles Murphy. You hear a lot of Miles Murphy with Auburn and Clemson right now. That's where he's visited of late. Miles Murphy is a guy that right now is concentrating on the academic segment of his recruiting. He plans to make his decision in August at the season pep rally for Hillgrove High School. Something interesting to think about for Miles Murphy, and I bet some Dog Nation cameras wind up there, and probably also some Georgia assistant coaches wind up at his spring game. Marietta High School is going to be facing Hillgrove, kind of a Cobb County battle in the spring game. Those two schools are going to lock up at the end of spring practice for their annual spring game. No doubt there will be a lot of college coaches right there. Marietta alone has 9 prospects that are rated among the top 100 players in Georgia for the classes of 2021 and 2020. So that'll be an interesting matchup for sure. Now we're going to catch some film. I want to take us all through a look at some of the top targets for the Georgia recruiting class, and we're going to spend maybe a minute looking at all of them right now. And these are guys that I think Dog Nation is really starting to take a good look at right now. Seems like we're talking about those guys often now on the Dog Nation forum, especially in that class of 2020 thread that I think keeps growing and growing and growing. I wonder if that one's going to end up with more than 100,000 views before the end of the year. First person we want to take a look at here on our film study is Keely Ringo. That's the guy out of Arizona, nation's number 2 corner, and he's done some great things in 7-on-7 circuit. Look at him come up there. Look at him take on that ball carrier, be a run support corner. Ringo, 6'2", 210. He's going to be rated right around the top 12, top 13 prospects in the country. His mother has already visited Georgia. He's already visited Georgia. Going to come back for G-Day as well. Want to be one of those top targets. And when you saw him lock up in the Adidas 7-on-7 national championships down there in Tampa a couple of weeks ago, him being on the same field with Eric Gilbert was something to behold. And he's a guy that simply wipes guys away. Look at him making plays over there. Didn't play a full season as a junior out of Arizona, and there's a chance there for Georgia to come up with another name on its state map and get the number 1 prospect in Arizona and continue to extend that footprint across the country. Ease Brown, man, I'm trying, man. Rick. Got to remember in my brain to rhyme it with brick. And hey guys, I think I've been monitoring some of the chat so far on Facebook. Really nice for all you guys to bring up the old times, the old school days, the old days where it was me, my cell phone, a tripod, a squeaky door, my barking puppy dog, and sometimes my kids coming in there. To think how the Wednesday recruiting chats for Dog Nation have grown since those days, and do thank everybody that joined in way back when and continue to join back in today. Next guy we're going to look at is Justin Flo. He's a guy that's kind of been all over the place. Most people wondered, with Southern Cal and USC faltering a little bit, which schools, especially from the South, were going to jump right in there and really make some hay right there. Well, Justin Flo visited Georgia kind of on one of those barnstorming tours that BA likes to wince about. Plays an inside linebacker there. Maybe more of a pure football player than a guy that's going to wow you with the metrics and the measurables. He's a guy that, Georgia, what they have at the inside linebacker room is pretty stout. Look at him here kind of getting after the screen pass, the flare pass. I think physicality is really a main way to describe Mr. Flo when you look at his game. And, Justin's a guy that is going to leave his mark on some guys, and he's going to chase some guys down, and he's going to announce his presence with authority and with bad intentions when he get there. Kind of looks like a Reuben Foster type. I can see him sort of fitting into the Georgia defensive front early like a Mac Wilson did at Alabama. Just a guy that's going to be great on kick team, a guy that's going to be physical. I referenced the name Reuben Foster there as well. Be very interesting what it looks like for Georgia should a guy like Justin Flo want to choose to play for Georgia. Also a guy like Laneith Whitehead, who we're going to look at here in just a second. Wonder what Georgia would do with its inside linebacker room if they have a lot of those guys all wanting to choose to play for Georgia in that 2020 class. The last guy we'll look at here with some little film study here is Leneath Whitehead out of Athens Academy. And folks, when you look at this film, I want you to think about this first and foremost. He runs the ball about 20 to 35 times a game for Athens Academy. He goes on the kick team. Then he plays inside linebacker, makes about 15 tackles a game at inside linebacker. Athens Academy played, look at that, get out of here, stiff arm right there, out of my way. He really likes Le'Veon Bell. He kind of patterns his run style a little bit after Le'Veon Bell. Big Le'Veon Bell fan. But what he tries to do is he's always playing for Athens Academy. And he played, now this is single A football here in Georgia, but he made it all the way to the state finals last year against Eagles Landing Christian Academy. Leneath Whitehead is a guy 4.50. That's his laser time in the 40. And really, when we're talking about pure times in the 40, straight ahead speed, Leneath Whitehead, who clocked that 4.50 on the laser, is probably going to be the fastest inside linebacker in the room at the University of Georgia. Maybe a name like Nate McBride, who showed up on Dog Nation's radar this week, is a guy that has that straight ahead speed because Nate McBride ran a 10.73, I believe, 10.79 in the 100 while he was in high school. But you want to talk about pure speed, he's also a shot putter, guys, and he's currently coming back off of a wrist injury. Recent update today with Mr. Whitehead is he told me that he will be at G-Day, that burgeoning RSVP list of all the big-time targets for G-Day. You can go ahead and add Leneath Whitehead to that list as well for G-Day. But you see this young man right here. He is also one of those track guys that Georgia loves to stack up and add to the program. Leneath Whitehead, his personal best in the shot put is about 67 feet and 3 inches. And right now, the best shot putters in the nation, the best high school shot putters in the nation, are right around 68 feet or so. So you're talking about an elite athlete. He wants to throw the shot put in college wherever he winds up. He also, if you ask him what his dream is, the dream is to make it in football and also make it in the shot put, whether that's in the SEC championships, maybe on in terms of an Olympic level type thrower. He's currently getting coached up on his throws right now by former Georgia Bulldog and former Olympian Reese Hoffa. Just, you talk about guys that don't play just one sport. The multi-sport athlete knows something about being disciplined and time management. And that's a guy right there, Leneath Whitehead, who rates as the nation's number 7 inside linebacker for 2020, but also came in as the 3rd highest guy at the opening rating in terms of all that combine testing. He had a 127.34 on his opening combine testing, and that's higher than anybody Georgia was recruiting there, anybody that had a Georgia offer, including all those twitchy wide receivers, running backs, and defensive ends. Got 3 names right there. Of course, all of this is brought to you today by Kroger, our Before the Hedges programs. Every Wednesday is brought to you by those good folks at Kroger. And Kroger, right now, Easter Sunday is right around the corner, and Kroger has everything you need for your Easter dinner. You can save on the boneless pork tenderloin, boneless chuck roast, and also that Kroger spiral sliced ham. I don't know about you guys, but I've got a Kroger near where I live in Woodstock where they have one side of the store, or one maybe quad of the store, they've all reserved for that organic, very healthy, green-wise, the type of folks that start to be, wanting to get into game day shape, ready to get into football season form. Kroger's always got that aisle where you're shopping around there, and it kind of eliminates the process about, I know this is going to be healthy for me and my family. Guys, we're all halfway through our Before the Hedges chat right now, and we want to talk about a few things. We mentioned G-Day. Now, G-Day is just April the 20th, and already some names have popped up. We mentioned Leneath Whitehead. Kind of going through my work right now where I try to confirm a lot of high priority 2020 and 2021 targets at the time. Let's see, Leneath Whitehead is confirmed. David Daniel has confirmed. That's the 4-star athlete out of Woodstock High School. Jaden Thomas has confirmed that he'll be there. We spoke about Tate Ratledge earlier in the day. He's also going to be there for G-Day. You would expect a lot of the 2019 commitments to be there, guys like Jameel Burrows, Broderick Jones, Interesting, if you just check Twitter right around the time this program kicked off, 4-star quarterback, the nation's number 3 quarterback, Carson Beck, tweeted out that he will be in Athens this weekend. And of course, what that means is it's a familiarity visit. He wants to maybe sit in on a meeting, maybe watch a couple of practices, maybe catch another scrimmage to get a good idea about the type of people and the type of personnel he's going to be dealing with. Carson Beck right there, look at that. He's about 6'4.5", really good size, great accuracy. He's one of those guys, you look at it, what are the strongest tools for Carson Beck? He's a guy with a lot of upside still. He's going to fit it into tight windows. He's also a guy that's going to be in his playbook and know exactly what's going on there. Already getting high-level quarterback training. Also led his high school team right there, Mandarin, the Mustangs, to a state title last fall in Florida's highest classification. And then you look at that right there, Mr. Beck's got the ability to kind of flash a little bit and kind of roll around. Look at him making those deep ball throws right there. But he's got the ability there to move the chains when he has to in order to extend drives. You know, part of the thing I wanted to do with this part of our show today is I wanted to talk about G-Day. What can folks kind of expect to see out of G-Day? I would expect a whole lot of passes for Stetson Bennett, a whole lot of passes for Dwan Mathis, and really you're going to see the ball spread around a lot. If you haven't noticed Georgia's defensive line situation and running back situation, especially since Kenny McIntosh is not on the way, is still on the way, that's another 2019 name that's kind of help on the way or depth on the way for the 2019 signing class that we spoke about earlier in our show. Kenny McIntosh is not there. Zamir White is still recovering from those knee injuries and those knee surgeries. DeAndre Swift, I would venture to say he's not going to get more than 4 or 5 carries, maybe 8 to 10 touches total in the spring game. Everybody knows what DeAndre Swift can do. One little thought there, going back to Zamir White though, is everybody wonders about the 2 knee surgeries and how can he do it. Remember, Zamir White just tore the ACLs in both knees. Didn't have any MCLs or patellas, any PCL tears as well. And he also has had a lot of time to rehab. You think about it, that first knee tear, he suffered that knee injury in late October of 2017. So maybe he's coming up on 22 months when August rolls around of recovery and rehab and strengthening time for that knee. And then he's going to have a lot more time with that second knee repair, he's going to have a lot more time than he ever did with the first knee injury when he was coming back and trying to get ready to play for Georgia. Remember the timeline here. I'm going to kind of flesh it out for you. First knee injury was he injured that knee in late October. He was basically ready to play for Georgia, ready to compete for Georgia last summer, last June, last July. And then he re-injured that knee in August. This time he had that re-injury of the knee in August, and he's almost going to have a full year by the time I expect him to be really full go with contact and all padded up to see what he can do. I would imagine he's going to have a full 12 months of recovery by the time he really cuts it loose, as Kirby Smart likes to say in pregame speeches right there. That's something to think about with all of the folks wondering, what can Zamir be? Can Zamir come back? How healthy should folks expect him to be? And really, the way the schedule sets up with Vanderbilt, I think you get Arkansas State and then Murray State. There's really no rush to get Zamir White rushed onto the field, so to speak. So he's going to have a lot of time to really work his way and get comfortable getting back into the swing of football again. And folks that want to know about what Zamir White was, he was simply one of the finest high school prospects I've ever seen. There's one go-to stat I like to go to. His senior year of high school football only got about 10 to 12 carries per game. And of those carries, he was scoring a touchdown about 24% of the time. I called it a touchdown or a home run percentage for him, kind of calculated it the way I would a batting average. Zamir White was scoring a touchdown on about 24% of his carries his senior season in high school. Look at him catch the ball over the middle in one of those clips. Something to think about that right there for sure. One topic I wanted to jump in today, wanted to have kind of a loose type look at everything we're going on so far, is I'm going to start writing later this week about the 2021 class. And to me, it's interesting from a guy that looks at the historical arc of Georgia recruiting under Kirby Smart. This is the longest Georgia has been without getting one of those anchor recruits in the, not just the current recruiting cycle, but the next cycle to come. You can look at the first class, the first full class that Kirby Smart had, and his 2017 class got a quick early commitment while the 2016 recruiting was still going underway with Richard LeCount. Basically, Richard LeCount committed to Georgia 7 days or so after Kirby Smart got the Georgia job. But then you look at the 2018 class, there were guys like Adam Anderson, there were guys like Max Ray who committed early. You remember the 2019 class had a very early commitment in the form of Luke Griffin. Luke Griffin actually committed in 2017, years in advance. Now, he didn't wind up with Georgia, and that's probably sort of the perils of recruiting early, and Georgia recruiting so well nationally now that they don't want to lock down a guy, especially an in-state guy, before they really see how well that young man developed. Luke Griffin drifted away from the class, let's say, ended up signing in the SEC with Missouri, but right now, currently, there's no public commitments for the Georgia 2021 class. Now, there's a lot of big targets and a lot of big names in the class of 2021. 24/7 Sports just re-rated the 2021 class for the nation, not just the state of Georgia. A name to think about there is Bleckley County's Amarius Mims. Amarius Mims is about 6'7.5", about 295, was a tight end last year for his high school team, and now he's the state of Georgia's top overall prospect for 2021. He actually is the nation's #2 offensive tackle for 2021. That's saying something, because a gentleman I wrote about this morning on DogNation.com, Micah Morris, a guy that made the final 5 at the Atlanta opening regional, still just 15 years old, already 6'4", 318 pounds, got an 84-inch wingspan, I believe, really long arms. I don't think, I tried to make sure I couched these words correctly. He might be the best young offensive tackle I've seen that really doesn't know what he's doing yet in terms of playing the more advanced aspects of the position. When you watched him at the Atlanta Regional, what he really did was he looked like a defensive back. He used great feet and kind of mirrored the edge rusher coming at him. He maintained inside leverage. I think we've got a clip there. My buddy Connor behind the glass is pulling that up. And look he's really going against a really good player there in B.J. Ojulari. And what he did is just maintained inside leverage and just shadowed that guy, used really good footwork to match up with him, and really not an advanced pass pro set yet for Micah Morris, and already just 15 years of age. I think he was the 3rd best offensive lineman there, and that was with a lot of adept and very quality 2020 recruits there as well on the edge. And he also had a couple of reps there. You see another rep there with B.J. Ojulari, but he had a couple of reps, 3 good reps with 5-star Miles Murphy, who we referenced earlier in this program, and he kind of held his own, and I think he actually took away one of those reps away from Miles. Miles is stupid fast, but Micah Morris really not knowing what's going on yet at his position. Look at him kind of stay in front of Miles Murphy right there. When that young man figures everything out and gets that advanced kind of pass protection technique down, he's going to be something. His first offer was South Carolina, loves Georgia. He actually wore a pair of Georgia gloves at the 2019 Nike Atlanta opening regional. Got to drop that sponsor name out of there. The Atlanta opening regional already looks like one of the true gotta-gets for Georgia in the class of 2021. And, I wanted to use this moment to kind of open up a part where the rest of our show is going to be a lot more loose, a lot more casual, a lot more free-flowing. But, I had a conversation with a couple of our readers on the Dog Nation forum, and I wanted to know, you guys do a great job. You absorb all the coverage everywhere about Georgia recruiting. I want to know if you could wave a magic wand and import one 2020 recruit into this class, who would that be for you? I mean, you can get one name that you could automatically make them commit to the G. And I think opinions will vary here about what everybody thinks. And I've kind of got my own take of what I think maybe is the fans' choice for the most wanted recruit for Georgia in 2020. But, feel free to populate everything going on there in YouTube and also our Facebook page and get a good sense of what's going on there. Feel free to kind of weigh in about who you think, in your mind, is the most vital recruit for Georgia in the 2020 class. Got Philip Jordan Wells weighing in there from back in the day. Chris McGee has Eric Gilbert. Joe Rush has Brian Brzee. Gerald Harmon. Micah Morris actually goes to Camden County in Kingsland. That's in South Georgia. Bill Radford has a question about Clay Webb. Clay Webb's just going to have to work his way up the depth chart for Georgia. I think he's going to show up as a depth guy at guard and center first. Really, he's one of the few guys on the Georgia offensive line that are under 305 pounds right now. He's just going to work his way into things there with Georgia. Him and Warren McClendon are also two good gets in the 2019 class. They're just going to have to wait a while. You know, my thoughts I kind of threw out there, like, you know, what would be the fans' choice for the most guy to get or the most vital recruit in the 2020 class. And, you know, Gerald Harmon weighs in there with Kendall Milton. Bill Kelly echoes that. He feels a 5-star running back is essential. Joe Rush wants to know what's going on with Burton and his commitment. Well, Burton was just at LSU on an official visit this past weekend. You hear LSU a lot with Jermaine Burton. He's going to make his commitment still on April 20th, which is G-Day, and that's to honor his receiver, his trainer, Terrence Edwards, on his birthday. Terrence Edwards helps a lot of guys get up the mountain and get to that next level, and he's definitely done a great job there with Jermaine Burton. Dante Eady weighs in. He thinks Brian Brzee or Miles Murphy might be the guy. Chris Brana has Milton or Gilbert. Milton to carry on their RBU tradition. Gilbert is an emphatic statement that Georgia is our state. And, you know, Chris, that's kind of where I weighed in as well. I think you got to get Gilbert. I mean, I think Gilbert is the most vital guy. You know, Milton's great, but, I mean, Milton is going to be a guy that would have a chance potentially to start for Georgia in 2020, but there'll be guys like James Cook there. Kenny McIntosh will be there. Zamir White will be there. Going to be a few names there for Georgia in 2020 about who could be the man at running back. But you definitely got to get a tight end like Eric Gilbert. He's in state. He's been a long-time priority. Georgia's going to be losing Charlie Warner and Eli Wolf out of the tight end room. It's just going to be Brett Seither, a guy that won't even show up until late May or June, and also Rylan Godey as well, two freshmen. Georgia really needs to restock that tight end with some alphas, with some 5-stars. And I think Eric Gilbert, to me, probably translates, not the most important recruit, but I think that's the guy that fans have known that name for the longest and maybe would be the one that the fans would be most disappointed to see go elsewhere. Hope everybody's doing well today. Obviously, guys, Kroger brings us all this content for Before the Hedges. Kroger has been a longtime sponsor for Dog Nation, especially the Before the Hedges program and also the Wednesday Night Live program prior to that, back in the old school days for Dog Nation. And hang around, because coming up at the end of this show, we're going to have that hurry up segment. Somebody's going to show what they know, and they're going to end up with a $50 How About Them Groceries gift card from Kroger. And you know, this is the end of the school year and it's approaching fast. And Kroger has you covered for all those lunches. Savings on everything from Capri Suns to string cheese to Pringles and lunch meats. And if you're trying to eat healthy like I am with my family, you also got all that celery and carrot sticks as well. You get one of those, I think my mom used to call it a bug on a rug, where she would put some peanut butter on top of a celery stick and then dot some raisins on it. Who hasn't tried that from mom or grandma's house? You can find all of that from those fine folks at Kroger at a shopping aisle near you. With that, guys, it is time to break open another 6-pack edition. I'm sure Brandon might somehow play along, and maybe my good man Connor behind the glass, just so for old time's sake, so it feels like BA is around. We can buzzer every other question, so it feels like, you know, we have the obligatory miss there from my man Brandon, the Dog Nation, Doggy Llama, as I like to call him. But anyway, without further ado, let's get some questions going in our 6-pack for today. And I've heard some chatter from folks that I've been making these six-pack questions a little too stout. So what I've done here is I've maybe put some training wheels on some of these questions, and maybe we don't have the 5-star difficulty this week. We only have the high 4-star, low 4-star, high 3-star difficulty. This is going to be a segment that challenges everybody to think about those Bulldogs on their roster and maybe think about all those stories they've read on Dog Nation about their recruiting and just what actually they like to do besides play football. First question: which current Georgia Bulldog was driving a car, albeit in a very rural area, well before he was 12 years old? You got Richard LeCount III there, you got Isaiah Wilson, you got Mark Webb, and you got Nate McBride. That's a Bulldog that's been in the headlines a lot this week. I sure was quick 2 seconds on McBride. How classy, how poised, how genuine was he when he met the media? He was honest, he was forthright, he looked himself in the mirror. I was incredibly impressed by everything Nate McBride had to say this week when he met the media. But for our Dog Nation six-pack question, we're getting a lot of answers in here. Let me make sure I pull up YouTube and see what's going on Dog Nation YouTube as well. But your answers there, we've had some time to figure out who was driving a car well in advance of the time when they were 12 years old, albeit in a very rural area. The correct answer there is, and this all mimic Brandon saying the wrong answer right here, the correct answer there is A, Richard LeCount. The Bulldog safety, now already in his third year at Georgia, was driving a car, memory serves, at like 9 or 10 years old, trying to get to the park to play ball or trying to get around. That was just one of those things that happened in very rural Liberty County. He grew up in Riceboro. I think there's only like 800 people in that entire town. Richard LeCount III, you will always remember a lot of great things about him early in the Kirby Smart era. The first 5-star, the first major recruit that came into Georgia. Love the story about how he was born on September 11th, and his family does not celebrate that day because it is not a happy day for our nation, and they choose to celebrate on the following weekend or whatever. That just shows a lot about the class exhibited by Richard LeCount and his family. Who all got that right? Weigh in and let me know who got that one right. We got some 0 for 1s. Chris McGee is 0 for 1. Ease Brown is 0 for 1. Hey guys, it may or may not be true that if you go 0 for 6 on a Before the Hedges six-pack segment, that you lose your top fan status. Consequently, if you go 6 for 6, you might gain your top fan status. Wouldn't that be a great way the world could work? James Bryant has a funny comment about the YouTubers. Those people are rich. They need no Kroger free food gift cards. Funny stuff there, Mr. Bryant. Our next question in our Dog Nation six-pack, thanks to everybody for hanging out and watching through our whole show right now. Which current Georgia Bulldog took 2 years of Latin in high school? J.R. Reed, Andrew Thomas, Rodrigo Blankenship, or DeAndre Swift? Now, did I not just pick maybe 4 of the most popular Bulldogs on the team right there? YouTube, let me see what you got. Step Fan Salter says, does not get any more rural than Liberty County or Vidalia. Chadwick Ivory is 0 for 1. Tyler Stoller weighs in. Eric Murillo, Chadwick Ivory, Sean Williams, Will Scott. Brandon Adams would probably say the right answer on this one. This might be one of his 6. Look at the board. The correct answer there, who took 2 years of Latin in high school? And folks, DeAndre Swift had a real deal high school. I'm talking about his senior year at St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia. He was still taking 6 or 7 regular classes. There was no mid-year or enroll early out of St. Joe's Prep in downtown Philadelphia. Never forget that scene. Beautiful Jesuit school, beautiful church. They would have mass in the middle of the day. Across the street from where DeAndre Swift went to school, and this is a school where mayors and Philadelphia Eagles sent their sons and daughters to this school, there was a bar and a fur shop. Never forget that about St. Joe's Prep. and that school when I went up there to cover DeAndre Swift and his recruiting. There you go, DeAndre Swift. Chadwick Ivory is 0 for 2 so far. Anybody on Facebook get that one on our six-pack trivia? Ease Brown is 0 for 2. Joel Moody's bracket, it just got busted. Remember, guys, and this is the part where you say, come on, man, Jeff, I thought you said that these were supposed to be easy. Easy. All right, moving on to number 3. Got our six-pack to get to, and then another hurry-up segment. Number 3 on our six-pack today for Before the Hedges on April 10th, 2019. Our third question is, which current former 5-star Bulldog was a chubby 200-pound offensive lineman back when he was in the 7th grade? A, Azeez Ojulari, a pick I still hold by that's going to take a job and earn a starting job at some point during the 2019 season. B, Nakobe Dean, that's the 5-star inside backer out of Horn Lake in Mississippi. C, Tyreek Stevenson, they call him the Freak, nation's number 3 corner in the 2019 class. Or D, Dwan Mathis, that quarterback that they brought up from Oak Park, Michigan. A lot of prospects now Georgia's opened up out of that Oak Park area in Michigan. You got Enzo Jennings, you got Malik Carr, you got Justin Rogers. But staying on point here with our six-pack, which current former 5-star was a chubby 7th grader, offensive lineman? We got Stevie Richardson, Zach Smith, Charles Kaiser weighing in. Somebody out there, let me know if you're already 2 for 2 and looking to go 3 for 3. Will Scott has B. Eric Muriel has A. Trevor Patton has D. Stepfan Salter has B. Nakobe Dean. Tyler Stoller has A. Azeez Ojulari. Chadwick Ivory says no idea, Jeff, and just chooses C. The correct answer here, as we're bouncing back and forth from YouTube and Facebook, correct answer here, if you said Nakobe Dean was a chubby 200-pound offensive lineman when he was in the 7th grade, just hoping he would grow, just hoping he could add some height. Hopefully somebody out there on Facebook or YouTube got that one right. Looks like Jacob McMillan got that one right. Number 4 on our six-pack trivia. Let's keep moving along right there. Got any 3 for 3 so far? Anybody doing great? Anybody 1 for 3, 2 for 3? Let's see if you can get on the board with question number 4. Question number 4. Which current Bulldog actually played 1 season of high school football with former UGA great Roquan Smith? Now, you're going to have to get out your fingers and toes and maybe do some algebra here. Maybe get out your slide ruler like you're a Georgia Tech show watcher today. But A, Trey Hill. B, Kieris Jackson. C, Malik Herring. D, Michael Barnett. Or E, Tay Crowder. Which one of those current Bulldogs actually played 1 season of high school ball with former UGA great Roquan Smith? Connor, is it okay to call him all-time great? Can we call him all-time great? It feels weird to say former. Listen, folks, there probably had 10 players that have played football at the University of Georgia that are better, that meant more and were better and have a brighter future than Roquan Smith. Still just turned 22 years of age this week. Stevie Richardson, how are you, sir? 0 for 3. Don't lose that top fan status with an 0 for 6. Jamel Major weighs in with E. Joel Moody has a D. Jacob McMillan says Tay. John Steven Sopsky says B. Philip Jordan Wells says B. Some folks are getting it. They're trying to figure out exactly what's going on there. They're thinking about Middle Georgia and everything else. The correct answer for everyone out there, is actually A, Trey Hill. Trey Hill was a Macon County Bulldog for 1 season, 9th grade season there with Roquan Smith. That was Roquan's senior year. Trey Hill and Roquan Smith are actually cousins to some extent. You know how you guys go with big extended families in South Georgia and Middle Georgia? I'm not sure about second cousin, third cousin, but they are cousins, Trey Hill and Roquan Smith. That is number 4. Moving on to number 5. Number 5 for our Dog Nation six-pack trivia. And guys, the phone still keeps ringing all the time. Which current Georgia Bulldog was a lifeguard in high school? A, Jaden Hunter. B, Charlie Warner. C, Owen Condon. D, offensive lineman Solomon Kinley. Or E, Speedy Eric Stokes. My pick, I believe, to be the Bulldogs' number 1 corner by the time the season opener rolls around against Vanderbilt. What does Dog Nation Facebook say? What does Dog Nation YouTube say? Philip Jordan Wells had a good guess with Karis. Peach County was right on top of Macon County, though. Joel Moody is like, well, when you get the first one right, you can't get shut out. Lifeguard. Former Bulldog, what current Bulldog was a lifeguard? One of their summer jobs, one of their jobs when they were in high school. Which former Bulldog was a lifeguard? Steve Burnett just has a quick audible at the line. Fred Davidson says Charlie Warner. Sean Williams says Jaden Hunter. Will Scott is batting .250. Cortez Killebrew says E. Folks, the correct answer there. Hard to believe. It's your left guard, a guy who I believe at the end of his redshirt junior season is going to have some true NFL aspirations and some true NFL scouts looking at what he can do. Big man, Solomon Kinley. Remember, redshirted the 2016 season there in Athens, was granted a redshirt under even though those old redshirt rules. I think he played one play against Missouri. NCAA gave him that back because he came in as an injury substitute and didn't play later on that season. Solomon Kinley, can you imagine that fella jumping in and cannonballing your way and pulling you out of the pool? Wouldn't that feel like an aircraft carrier's tugging you out of the water right there? Solomon Kinley, Step Fan Salter. Solomon Kinley. Good job, Steve Burnett. You got that one right, sir. You remember those Solomon Kinley stories from way back in the class of 2016. Our final trivia question. The last remnants of the Dog Nation six-pack for today. Let's take a look at it, and man, this one was hard. What I'm looking at there is, Kirby Smart and the Georgia staff like to get those track guys. They like to get those Bulldogs that play multiple sports, especially those track guys, and this one dives into that arena, so to speak. Look at all these names right here for our final six-pack trivia question. Which current Georgia Bulldog, which one of these Georgia Bulldogs did not win a state track championship while in high school? And we got a lot. You got Nate McBride, you got Karis Jackson, you got C, J.J. Holloman, you got D, Eric Stokes, you got E, D-Rob, Demetrius Robertson, F, Tyson Campbell, you got G, all of the above, or H, none of the above. That is a long list of athletic Bulldogs right there. C. Hill, you're pretty funny. C. Hill weighs in on YouTube, and he says if Solomon Kinley cannonballed, you wouldn't have to worry about drowning anymore. Fred Davidson never would have guessed that one in a million years. Hey, man, thanks for playing and everything. Let's go back to that doozy of a question right there. Look at all those names. You got D-Rob, you got King Kieris, you got Big Nate McBride, you got Eric Stokes, you got Tyson Campbell, J.J. Holloman, all those guys. The correct answer there, guys, which says something about Georgia recruiting and Georgia football, is all of the above. All of those guys right there won at least one. A lot of these guys are triple state champion holders, triple medal winners. All of those guys won a state track championship in high school. And if I wanted to, I could go down another 6 or 7 names with guys that won some sort of state championship on a track team while they're in high school. That even extends out to the relays and so forth. But a lot of guys right there. How'd you guys do on the six-pack? How'd you guys do on that one? Chadwick Ivory says their top fan status is in trouble. Remember, that last question, what I was looking for there is which one of those guys did not win a state stack championship in high school? The answer there for all of the above meant that all of those guys won a state track championship in high school. Now, guys, we're coming down to the final stretch of our show. We're going to call this one the hurry up. And Connor, how long do you think should we put on the clock? Should we give them 10 minutes? Should we give them 5 minutes? What should we give them? We're going to go 5 minutes with a hurry up segment today. I'm going to try and bounce back and forth between YouTube and also from Facebook. Let's be democratic here, guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this some groupthink, some collaboration. When we get through all this, I want somebody to maybe nominate who they thought was the best question of the day. And if that was one that Connor and I agree with, or most of our audience today agrees with, we're going to award the $50 How About Them Groceries gift card to that. So, guys, this will be a merit-based $50 gift card. Zach Smith gets in a jab for BA. 2 for 6. He had a BA score today. Ease Brown, you thought Tyson Campbell because the Auburn receiver beat him, but one of those years in high school, Tyson Campbell, Anthony Schwartz was injured and did not compete in the state meet. That allowed Tyson Campbell to win it. Charles Kaiser has a question. Over under 1.5 in the portal after spring. Charles Kaiser, Mr. Kaiser, I'm going to say definitely over there. Other than Brizzy and Murphy, who are the 2 DL that Georgia needs, I think about Jacoby Cowan there is a guy Georgia's looking at, likes a lot. You've also got to think about Jay Hardy, who's out of Chattanooga. He's another defensive tackle target for Georgia. Georgia definitely wants to keep going. You've got Jacoby Cowan. B.J. Ojolari is a guy to think about as maybe even an outside linebacker target in the 2020 class. But, Georgia definitely needs to keep going and keep looking for those 2020 defensive linemen. Anthony White wants to know, how's the outside linebacker group looking at spring practice so far? Anthony, Nolan Smith has been everything as advertised. I would wonder if you had to ask me right now who I think the starting outside backers might be, I think that might be Azeez Ojolari and Nolan Smith may become the Notre Dame game. I think when it comes time to go, it might be Nolan Smith right there in a rotation with Adam Anderson and also Azeez Ojolari and Brenton Cox. The outside linebacker group is probably, I think, the most filled room with future number 1 and number 2 NFL draft picks on the team. Jermaine Johnson, should he stay healthy, might be a guy that stays ahead of Nolan just because he's bigger and longer and a little bit older to hold up in the SEC. Trying to keep up with questions here. It looks like my computer has frozen just a bit. Oh my gosh. Eric Miria wants to know who would win in a fight, Holyfield's father or Swift's father. I think it's probably going to be depicted in the upcoming Game of Thrones final season or the Avengers Endgame. That's kind of like, Hulk, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Thor, all those guys going against Thanos. I mean, that would just be incredible. Of course, those dudes are really nice guys, not going to mix it up like that. But you talk about 2 guys that definitely look the part. C. Hill wants to know, how much of Zeus do I think we'll see this year? I think a reasonable expectation for Zeus is about 100 carries. Chadwick Ivory wants to know if Eric Gilbert and Darnell Washington will be at G-Day. Eric Gilbert, yes. Darnell Washington, no. Over under for Zamir TDs for this season. I'm going to say 7. I think that's a number to think about right there. Yeah, Steph Fensalter has a great question, a great point too. The thinking there is that Logue, Walter, Norton, and Mitchell will be better than several realize. I think that will be much the case. I mean, look at guys like Mikael Carter, Julian Rochester, Tyler Clark. Those guys were all 4-star DLs coming into Georgia. I think Rochester was even a top 10 defensive lineman. And yet you would say that those 3 careers still have a lot left on the table, a lot more glory left to gain for Georgia. Whereas you look at a guy like maybe Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, those are guys that I think maybe didn't have the recruiting stars next to their name, but I think those guys are better fits for the Georgia defensive front. Hopping over to YouTube, Joel Ortega. I think Bill Norton's going to be just fine. He's just going to have to learn and get into the system as well. Will Scott has a great question. Cleveland, Wilson, or Thomas, who would win an arm wrestling match? I would think Ben Cleveland would win that arm wrestling match right there. Hey, quick word. We were talking, I'm sure somebody had a question there about G-Day. I think I saw a question about Carson Beck and whether he will make 2 consecutive trips to Georgia. Well, that's the case right there. They will be at practice on the 13th to watch Georgia practice that day. And then they're going to come right back for G-Day as well. So Carson Beck will make 2 consecutive trips. We'll spend 2 straight weekends in Georgia for both G-Day and to see his scrimmage visit this coming weekend as well. So that's good news. We're effectively here, Carson Beck's recruiting has been shut down ever since he committed to Georgia. As well. Well, there you have it, guys. That has been another Before the Hedges. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for joining us on YouTube and Dog Nation. I want to thank everybody that found a way to spend some time with some Dog Nation folks today, even though the doggy llama today is walking around the tournament and enjoying the par 3 contest as well. I hope Brandon, if he is in the true friend zone, remembers to text before he leaves and ask his beloved comrades, is there anything he can get for his Dog Nation brothers from the pro shop? That is what a true friend is. If he can't get you into Augusta National with him, what he does do is say, hey, what color polo, what color vest, what color hat should I pick up for you at the pro shop? That is how a 5-star friend does it. Folks, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us today on dognation.com and also on our various social media channels. One thing I have to do now is, do we have anybody? Does YouTube have anybody? Does Facebook have anybody that would kind of go down as our question of the day status, the question of the day for everybody here? I'd like to know what everybody thinks about that one. My computer, in true Brandon Adams fame, just died at the end of our show, so I'm having to go back to our feed on our phone. Who do we think had the top question today during our hurry up step? Rochester was even a top 10. James Bryant says he lost another Kroger free food card. His life is incomplete.
John William Adams, I don't know if this is the best question, but it is the funniest. How many inexpensive sandwiches could Brandon Adams eat at the Masters today?
I like that one. That one came from Facebook, or did that one come from YouTube?
Facebook. It came from John William Adams on Facebook.
John William Adams. We're going to reach out to you. I'm going to find you. I'm going to do my best Liam Neeson. I'm going to track you down. I'm going to find you, and we're going to give you a $50 How About Them Groceries gift card from Kroger. And hey, guys, got to remember one last thing. Your Kroger has hopping deals for Easter. Save 20% for all your Easter needs, from plastic eggs to basket grass to POS Easter eggs. You get all that dye all over your hands where you know you're a good father then, and so much more. Check out everything for your Easter needs at Kroger. I'm Jeff. That's my man Connor behind the glass. We have had another Han Solo edition of Before the Hedges on Wednesdays on Dog Nation, just like we did in 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. See you guys again really soon on Dog Nation, and let's hope that Brandon brings back some gear for me and Connor from Augusta National Golf Club. Take it easy, guys, and enjoy the Masters this weekend.